Hello and welcome to my channel. Welcome to this practice. My name is Kelsey. Today I'm going to guide you through a yin yoga practice that is intended to be the yin variation of a moon salutation. So if you have been practicing yoga for some time, you've most likely heard of sun salutations. You've likely practiced them a lot in hatha, vinyasa, or ashtanga yoga classes. There is a more recent, more modern adaptation of salutations called moon salutations that are meant to be done to invoke feminine energy, to connect with the cycle of the moon, and to kind of calm the body down. And yin yoga, I feel like, is a really great practice to kind of pair into this because we're kind of doing the same thing in a yin practice. Yin is more so associated with feminine energy, with the moon, and these more soft and subtle aspects of our consciousness. So for today, through emulating that feeling of a moon salutation through the yin poses, we're going to be focusing mostly on hip openers and lateral flexion, which is like your side bends. So we'll be doing really a full body practice, as a sun salutation and a moon salutation really is a full body thing, but you might notice that we're focusing a little bit more on those areas of the body. And for your practice today, I'm using both a bolster and 2 blocks. Now, if you don't have these props at all, or you only have one of them, that's totally okay. You can use things at home like pillows, blankets, books, anything that will kind of just elevate your body and bring the earth up a little closer to you in some of these poses. The last thing I want to say before we get started is that in moon salutations, because we're honoring the 2 sides of the moon, the light and the dark side, we'll be doing all of the poses on one side of the body before we move to the second side of the body. So it might feel a little bit funny at times, but I just invite you to take it in and then experience that sense of balance when we rest in Shavasana at the end. So with all of this said, we're going to begin in Bananasana, banana pose. You'll come to lay down onto your back. And then let's just begin in a constructive rest pose before we go into banana. Soles of the feet touching on your mat, knees pointing towards the ceiling. Let your shoulders soften into your mat. And take a couple of breaths here to arrive in your practice. As you're ready, extend your legs long, and then walk both of your heels over to the left side of your mat. Cross your right ankle on top of your left, and then walk your head and your shoulders over to the left as well. So you're kind of creating a C shape or a crescent moon shape with your body. Option to have your arms resting beside you, or you could reach the arms overhead, grabbing onto opposite elbow with opposite hand, or holding onto your right wrist with your left hand. And so this is emulating that first crescent moon stretch that we do in a moon salutation. Send breath awareness to your right side body. Make sure that your right hip can still be in contact with your mat. We're not rolling onto the left side in this pose. We're opening through the right side body from the edge of the right foot all the way up the right hip, past the waist, past the ribs, into the right shoulder, and into the right fingertips. So while you might primarily feel this in your waist and in your ribs, sense your right side body as a whole. Take another breath in and let it go. Begin to bring your arms down if they were overhead. Walk your head and your shoulders back to the midline of your mat, and walk your feet back to the midline of your mat. Before we go into our next Yin-style posture, we'll take a big full body stretch, reaching your arms overhead, reaching long through your fingers and your toes. Big breath in. And exhale, soften and let it all go again. And so using that stretch like our star pose in a moon salutation, and then from here we'll move into stirrup or happy baby as our goddess variation. And so lengthening the tailbone down, draw your knees in towards your body, widen the knees apart about shoulder width distance. You may stay here today just holding on to the fronts of your knees or your shins, or if it's available in your body, you could reach for your ankles or onto your feet somewhere, trying to get your ankles to stack over your knees and drawing your thighs down towards the sides of your ribs. Now, if you have any hypermobility and hyperflexion in your hips, you might find that you're able to go past your natural and comfortable range of motion in a pose like this. And that's not sustainable, and we want to be able to remain still in our yin yoga poses. So what I like to do, because I do experience hypermobility and hyperflexibility, you're going to place blocks on their medium or lowest setting next to your ribs, so that as your thighs draw down towards your ribs, there's a stopping point, and you're not going to go past that comfortable range of motion where you're feeling the stretch and you're feeling the sensation in your hips and your hamstrings and your lower back, but you're not going to a point of pain or discomfort and overwhelm. And then you want to soften through your arms. Even though your hands and your arms are holding on to your legs, you're not using them to pull. You're letting the shoulders be heavy and then letting that create the stretch. Softening even through your jaw, and letting those small muscles relax will communicate to the rest of your body that it's safe to relax as well. One more breath in. Exhale, let go of what you're holding on to. Bend your knees again, bring the legs back together. And draw them into a big hug before you let your feet return down to your mat again. Move the blocks off to the side. A brief pause just to notice the effect of that pose in your body. And then just roll over to one side, whichever side's comfortable for you, to come up to a seat facing the long edge of your mat. And so we'll extend the right leg out beside us. Left heel's coming in towards your groin. You can sit up on a blanket here if it feels like it's really difficult to sit up tall. And this next series of poses are going to emulate our triangle and pyramid poses. So starting with a half dragonfly side bend, I like to use a block over towards my right. And then leaning my right elbow onto the block, I let my head be heavy and use the right hand underneath the side of my head as a support. Option to keep your left hand on your left thigh or hip, or to bring that left hand behind your lower back. Over time, you might like to explore reaching the left arm overhead, placing a bend at the elbow, and letting the left hand rest behind your head. But if you take this variation at any point, I want you to prioritize leaning back into your hand instead of letting the hand and the arm press you forward. Soften the shoulders away from your neck. In this pose, similar to triangle, we're getting the lateral flexion, the stretch in the left side body, as well as an opening through the right hamstring and the right inner thigh. Take another breath in here. And as you exhale, lift your head, press into the right hand or the right arm to slowly lift back up to upright. Notice how your left side body feels. And then you're either going to just twist towards the right leg, keeping this left leg externally rotated, and then fold over the right leg, Or you can take the variation that I'm going to do. I'm going to internally rotate the left thigh, and I'm going to face the shorter edge of my mat, bringing my left heel towards my left hip. So it's a half saddle, and then I'm going to fold straight over my right leg. You can use blocks underneath your forearms to bring the earth closer to you, emulating our pyramid pose. Head is heavy, maybe even using the hands to support your head or stacking props underneath the forehead. Take another breath in and out. Press your hands down into your mat to slowly raise up away from your legs. Pause and upright. Roll the shoulders back and down. Notice how you feel. And then if you were using your props, move them towards the front of your mat. And extend that left leg as well. You can take a moment to lean back on the hands and just alternate the bends of the knees, or shake out the legs, tick-tock the toes. From here, moving into dragon. So you'll come through to a table. Option to pad your knees with a blanket or to roll up your mat. Place the fold underneath your right knee. And then come up onto the blocks and step your left foot between your hands. And so this is emulating like our low lunge that we would do in a moon salutation. Letting the hips be heavy forward and down, softening into the support of the arms. You can always lower the level of the blocks. Head can be heavy. Notice if you can soften a little bit more. Deepen your breath. One more breath in and out. Start to lift your head. From here, I want you to heel toe your left foot to the outside of your mat. Toes are going to be pointing outward. Heel is going to be pointing in. Tuck your right toes, lift your right knee, and then either hop or take a big step to place your right foot to the outside of the right hand. From here, you can place a block underneath your seat, and then as you bend your knees and sink your hips down low, sitting your hips onto the block, or if you feel like you can do this without a block, moving it out of the way and just letting your hips be heavy towards the floor, moving into squat or balasana. Hands can stay in front of you, either leaning onto a block or just fingertips down to the mat. You can actually let your spine round quite a bit in this yin variation of malasana. Letting the head be heavy. For me, I do like to have my hands at heart center, just gently pressing my knees open with the elbows. But again, I'm not using any effort. I'm not muscling through this. Every exhale, let yourself soften a little bit more. After this pose, we'll be moving through the asanas on the opposite side. Take another breath in. And as you exhale, bring your hands in front of you if they're not there already. Press into your feet, lift your hips, come into a brief forward bend, walking the feet back in line with your hips. Move the block that was under your seat out of the way. Hands go onto the blocks. And then from here, we're going to step the left foot back, lower the left knee into your low lunge, your dragon. Hands stay on the blocks on any setting unless it feels more comfortable in your body to move the blocks out of the way. Soften into your shoulders, let your head be heavy. Once again, notice if there's anywhere else you can soften for these last few breaths. One more breath in and exhale. Lift your head. We're going to step the right leg back into table again, moving the blocks out of the way. It might feel nice to tick-tock your hips side to side or around in circles. My hips kind of tend to pop whenever I do that after dragon pose, so that's normal as long as you're not feeling any pain. From here, swing your legs to one side, roll onto your bottom. And from here, we'll move into our pose emulating pyramid, bending your right knee, keeping the left leg extended out long, placing the heel to the outside of the right hip this time. And again, if this is not appropriate for your knee, your ankle, your back, you can always keep that right heel in towards the groin and then twist and fold over the left leg like this. Otherwise, moving into the half saddle, I'm going to stack some blocks underneath my forehead and soften and fold down when you're ready. Take one more breath in. As you exhale, press into your hands. Lift yourself away from your legs, away from your props. And then if you had your heel next to your glute like I do, you're going to bend that right knee and place the sole of the right foot to the inside of the left thigh this time, opening the hips out a little bit wider as we move into the side bend. So I'll place a block to the outside of my left hip and left thigh, leaning over onto the block. Again, I like to use my hand like a support for my head. And then right hand can stay resting on top of the right thigh. It could go behind the lower back for more of a chest opener. Or you could reach that right arm up overhead, bending at the elbow, just taking care not to let the arm press your head forward. And this is emulating our triangle pose on the second side. One more breath in and out. Begin to lift your head. Press down through the left hand and left arm to come back into an upright position. Take a brief pause to notice how your body's feeling. And then instead of going into another happy baby to emulate our goddess pose again, we're going to come into a butterfly fish. So if you have blocks, setting your blocks up staggered one in front of the other towards the back of your mat. I'm using a bolster, so if you don't have a bolster or blocks, you can use pillows to just elevate your back body. You want your hips resting on your mat, and then you can recline back down into the supported back bend here. And then whenever you arrive, bring soles of your feet together, knees apart. So again, getting that hip opening, but now getting more of a back bend, something that can feel really nice after these forward bends that we've been practicing. Another breath in. A longer breath out. Begin to bring your legs back together using the help of your hands under your thighs, soles of your feet to your mat. All you really need to do is roll over to one side, reach behind you and scoot your bolster out of the way before reclining down onto your back for our last yin pose, back into that banana. So we're going to extend our legs, walk both of the heels to the right this time, cross the left ankle over the right, and then walk head and shoulders to the right. Maybe your arms stay down, maybe you reach your arms overhead, holding on to opposite elbow with opposite hand, or I'm having my left wrist in my right hand. Make sure you can still feel that left hip grounding down. Breathe into the left side, just like in the first pose on the first side, sensing that line of energy from the left ankle all the way up the left hip, past the waist, past your ribs, into the left shoulder and the left fingertips. Breathing into your entire left side body, sensing it as a whole. One more breath in here. Exhale, release your arms. Move your head and your shoulders back to the midline of your mat. And walk your feet to the midline as well. And from here, let's just take a brief rest in your Shavasana, your final resting pose. Letting your hands and your arms rest wherever's comfortable. If you have the luxury of props, you could support yourself in a supported variation of Shavasana. We're not going to be here for too long, so if there's any temptation to leave this part out, please resist. Let your eyes be soft. Let your breath be steady and natural. And you'll hear my voice when it's time to come back into your space. enjoy this time of rest. Remaining just as you are, start to take some deeper breaths. Wiggle your fingers and your toes. Nod your head side to side. When you're ready, pull your knees into a big hug. And then roll over onto one side, whichever side is most comfortable for you. Meet me in a comfortable seat without feeling rushed. Sitting up nice and tall whenever you arrive, letting the shoulders drop away from your neck. Take a moment to acknowledge how you feel and feel gratitude for the opportunity to be in this practice. Gratitude for yourself for showing up. And with this gratitude in our hearts, palms come together in front of the heart, closing our practice with one chant of Om. Wherever you are with your breath, release the air. Take a big breath in through your nose. And exhale to chant. Om. Thank you all so much for being here and sharing your practice with me. I hope that this Yin-style moon salutation served you well and that your body feels wonderful and calm. Be sure to leave me a comment letting me know how this went for you and any other suggestions that you might have for future classes. Please subscribe if you haven't already. I put out a new practice every single Sunday and then sometimes an extra one throughout the week just for fun or for special occasions. And I hope that we can practice together in a class very soon. Thank you. Namaste.